Hello, good afternoon. This is Donna Simiel with the Online Learning Department at Niagara County Community College. Today's presentation is how to make PowerPoint presentations compliant. If you have any questions about this or any other of our recordings, you can email us at onlinelearning@niagaracc.suny.edu. You can also visit our blog at nccconlinelearning.com. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, in Microsoft products, PowerPoint, Excel, Word, they all have an accessibility checker. So when you create your PowerPoints, it's always a good idea that when you're all done, go through the accessibility checker, which is through the file, and you're already going to be on the info tab, and you can hit check for issues and then check accessibility as it shows in this diagram. There's also a video on how to use this and maybe make some updates. Okay. Through this presentation, I'm going to tell you what to look for, what things need to be made accessible in a lot of cases, and how to run the checker and everything else. So there's going to be a whole bunch of resources at the end that you can use to help you with this. Okay, so the big thing is when you're done with your PowerPoint, run this accessibility checker. All right, some of the big things when you're looking at text on a page, a lot of times PowerPoints have a lot of text, a lot of images, charts, diagrams, things like that. Your text size should be a minimum of 16 points. It's always a good idea if you're going to be doing this in an auditorium or in a classroom, you should always test it out and make sure that what you have set up is going to be viewable from the back row in whatever form that you're going to be using for your presentations. So, 16 points could be your starting point, but you want to test it out and see in the form that you're going to show it. Okay. You should use sans serif fonts. Okay. Serif fonts, some are okay. Times New Roman is one of them, but they have found that sometimes some students will have a problem reading like Times New Roman that has the tags on the ends. So it's best to keep your fonts very squared off, not a lot of detail, and stay away from anything that's real funky like Comic Sans. Okay. Using colors and accents. Don't use red and green on the same page because colorblind students cannot distinguish between these colors. Avoid using blue text. This is often used for links. So often students will try and click on it, assuming it's a link. So it's best to stay away from blue. Avoid underline for the same reason. A lot of times if a student sees something that's underlined, they assume it's a link. So when they click on it and nothing happens, they're going to think that it's a broken link. Okay. Avoid using color to accent text. For an example, if you are going to make all your headings blue, okay, let's say blue or red or something like that, or green or something like that. Will it have the same meaning if a student can't distinguish the colors? Will it have the same meaning if it's printed out in black and white? Okay, so if you're accenting text, they actually recommend that you use color and you make it bold as well, or you use like the feature of accenting text. So this way a screen reader will let the person know if it's being read to them that it is accented text. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind. The best thing to do is print it out in black and white and see if the accented text is still accented with the color removed. Okay. Outline view should be make sense to somebody. A lot of times they can print out outline view. I've actually worked with the accessibility office, and they had a student that needed to just have the text from the slides, and I had them use the outline view to just print out the text. It's going to be very limited. If you have a lot of graphs on your pages, it will not print this. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind if you have a student that's the only option that they have to view your PowerPoints is in the outline view. Okay, I would take a look at it and see if it makes any sense to you without all your extra images and stuff. Okay. All your slides in your presentation have to have a unique title. Okay. So if you have two slides that have the exact same title, screen readers will allow students to browse through your slides by the titles. So if you have two with the same titles, they are not going to know what's going to be on that slide. Okay, so it's very important to make sure that the title of your slide is actually unique. Okay, and actually, since I'm in PowerPoint, let's go. If I go to view, we had mentioned the outline view. If you go to outline view, this is what it would print out, is what you see on the left-hand side. So none of the graphics and pictures would show up in the outline view. Okay. All right. Layouts. You should always use layouts that are already predefined in PowerPoint. So if you go in and if you look at the layout tab underneath home, these are the layouts of the patterns that you can use. Okay. What they've tried to do is set up basically blocks of area on the slides to put in text, to put in charts, graphs, tables, things like that. Titles only. What you should not start off with is a blank slide for the presentation and then build it manually. It makes it very hard for the screen readers and for the reader that's reading the slide to a student that's having a screen reader read to them. Okay, so you know, if you're going to have text and a chart and a picture, make sure you use the either the comparison option, or you would use the two content areas. So one box would be for text and one box would be for the image. And then the box across the top would be for the title. Okay, so it's important to make sure you use the layouts. All right. Images and hyperlinks. All images must have alt text on them. Okay, and I can go back to a slide so you can show that to you. URLs, hyperlinks, should actually be written out in regular language. So I have an example here. Here's the college website, okay? And this is written out showing the URL. The problem with this is a student that's having a screen reader read to them, it would actually read it character by character, okay? This is what would be recommended, where you actually type out the text that would identify what the link is taking them to. And again, you can see the blue, you can see the underline. So this is recommended. The only time that you would actually want to use the actual URL is if you're going to print it out, and that is the format that you're giving it to students. Okay, this way they could actually type in what it is. But if it's an electronic version, it should be in this format where it actually tells them where they're going to go and it's all set up. Okay. If you do have to go out and grab a URL that's very long, it is best to convert it to a shorter URL by using tinyURL or bit.ly. I prefer tinyURL because it's not uppercase and lowercase specific. Bit.lys will actually uppercase and lowercase letters throughout the shortened URL, and they actually have to type it in that way. So I prefer the option for tinyURL. And I'm going to share this presentation with you so you can use the links to go to these websites and try them out. Basically, all you have to do is go to a website you want to shorten. You copy and paste the URL, go to tinyURL, you paste it in and tell it to shorten it, and it will give you a shortened URL to work with. Okay, so that's, you know, a good thing to have. Also, let me go back. I'm going to go back to an image here. All images, if I right click on it, there's an option to format the picture. Up at the top, there's 4 buttons. If I go to the size and properties, there's an option in there for alt text. So if you go into alt text, you would describe what that picture was of. So if it was a chart, if it was a graph, you would want to go in and add this alt text to that image. Okay, so anything that you're just giving an image for that particular item, you've got to have alt text to go with it. Okay. All right. And here's the instructions. You right click on the image, go to Format Picture, Size and Properties, and Alt Text. So you can see how it's laid out. Okay, tables. Tables in PowerPoint automatically assign the first row as a header row. Okay, some things to watch out for tables is the first row has to be a header row. So it has to have some kind of heading so a screen reader can tell the person what the main columns are. You do need to have alt text for a chart to let them know how is the chart broken down. You know, what is in the first column, what is in the second column, things like that. Don't put a title in the first row, like a single title. Use the title at the top of the slide to label the whole table, okay? A lot of times people would like merge the first row together and make one big row out of it and then put the title in there. And that messes up the way that it's going to read the table to them. So it's always a good idea to, you know, just put individual headings in the columns here and put the title that you want to describe the whole table at the top in the title box. Okay. So stay away from merging and splitting cells inside of a table. Make sure your table styles are easy to read. So if I went in and started putting in titles in here, you can see that's kind of hard to read. So you might go in and say, okay, well, I like the color of the table of the background, but maybe black lettering would work better and it would stand out a little bit easier. Okay, so you want to make sure that the contrast in your information shows up well. Another area where you can see the contrast difference is, let me go back to a title. I have this one here that's kind of an orange. If you look at the heading that's orange in here and compare that to the bright yellow, you can see that the contrast is much better on the bright yellow. Okay, so, you know, kind of keep that in mind when you're looking at your colors and stuff within your tables and on your slides as well. Avoid leaving blank cells because the screen reader can stop reading if there's blank cells within your table. Don't use rows to separate, you know, like blank rows to separate it. If you want to separate information, it's better to change your row height and make the row deeper. Okay, and that would separate your information that's going to be in your next row below it. Okay, so don't skip rows when you're building your table. Okay, tables also require alt text to define them. All right, so I'm going to go back to the actual table. So if I click inside the table, if I right click on the edge of the table, it's going to have format shape just like it did with the picture. And there is a size and properties in here, and then they have alt text. So I can go in and put a title in for the chart and then describe what's in each one of my columns in the description. Okay, so I want to make sure that I do that in each one of my tables. All right, so there's the instructions on how to do that. If you embed a video, the video needs to be captioned. Okay, so make sure you use, if you pull something from YouTube, that video should be, should have hopefully as correct closed caption as possible. I would recommend that you actually take a look at the library videos because those are all ADA compliant. So if you embed them into a PowerPoint or a course or anywhere, you know that it has the closed captions and they're already set up. Okay. If you're going to do anything that requires audio inside your presentation, you want to make sure you have a transcript that describes what's being said. So if you have a student that is hearing impaired, they can actually read the transcript and see what's being said in the audio. And that's the same reason why you would have closed captions in a video. Okay. Videos actually in a PowerPoint should not be automatic unless you're doing a full video of the whole presentation and you're recording it and they can start and stop it. You want to set your videos, if you're going to give them the presentation to watch, you want to set the videos so that they have to click on the videos to be able to run them. Okay, like I said, unless you have timings and everything and you're actually going to record the whole presentation and create a video from the whole thing. In that case, yes, you would want to have the videos run on their own. Okay. Best practices for file formats for PowerPoints. You should have a PDF version of the PowerPoint. Okay. This way the students don't require extra software to be able to look at it. Okay. Now, because of that, you're not going to have it actually be able to run the actual presentation. So keep that in mind, but at least they can go through it on their own and read the slides. Okay. It is actually better if you can narrate the PowerPoint yourself and export that narrated PowerPoint as an MPF file. Okay. And that MP4 file, and that MP4 file can be uploaded to YouTube or Ensemble, and it can be closed captioned using that tool. Okay. So, you know, that's actually a better option for your students. And this way they, you know, they hear your voice, they make the connection with you. You can explain things, because normally in a PowerPoint, you wouldn't have everything on the slides. You would explain deeper about the information that they're seeing. So, you know, it would be a better practice to actually create an MP4 file. Okay. And it's real simple to do it. You would actually go in and create under slideshow. If you do record slideshow, it will let you go through and record your narration to the slides. And what it's going to do is it sets the recording for each slide, and it sets the timing as you're going through and doing this for each slide. Then when you're all done and you end the show, it will create the whole slideshow using those timings and their narration. And one advantage of doing it through this is if you get through and you say, oh, that one slide I messed up, you can actually go back and re-record just the recording for that one slide. Okay, so you don't have to go back through and do the whole presentation. So if you do the narration, you do the timings, you get it all set up. Obviously you can save it that way, but then what you would do is you would go to File and go to Export, and there's an option of Create Video. You would leave all the defaults of all the timings that you've set up with the narration, and you just hit Create Video. And when you do that, it will automatically create the MP4 file that can be uploaded into YouTube. Okay. And with YouTube, it's going to be closed caption, because it's going to create those for you. This way your students can start it and stop it. They can hear your voice. They can watch the videos that are in there within the presentation. So it's a nice option to be able to give them. All right. So you can still give them the PowerPoint file if you want them to run the PowerPoint, but it's highly recommended to give them a PDF or upload an MP4 file, and you can embed that in your courses. Okay. Now, so, all right. Just to review, font size of 16 or higher. You want to use the sans serif fonts, which do not have the tags on the end. All items that are non-text must have alt text with them, whether it be a table, a picture, a graph, a diagram should have alt text. Okay. The best resources to give them, or the best files to give them, is a PDF file of the PowerPoint, and or, you know, do a narrated PowerPoint and upload that to YouTube and have it create the closed captions for it. It makes it a lot easier for the students. They're all watching YouTube videos, so they shouldn't have a problem going in and watching your PowerPoint. Okay. On this last slide that I'm going to share with everybody, we have our online learning faculty support center. We have an accessibility website, which has the information on how to make a lot of content accessible. There's a website in here for WebAIM to be able to go in, and they have a section on it for making PowerPoints accessible, so it can dig deeper. There's support for Microsoft that can help you, and how to turn your presentation into a video. We have a website for you to use for that as well. Okay. Now, I did not make this PowerPoint ADA compliant, so if I go to File, check for issues and check accessibility, it's going to tell me a bunch of errors that are occurring in here. So it's telling me that I do not have alt text on this slide. So if I click on it, it's going to jump to that slide and it's going to select that item. So I can see that that table does not have alt text associated with it. So I could actually go in and I could fix this. And as soon as I fix it, it would remove it from the list. So I can click on each one of the problem areas and it will jump to that information. Okay, so it doesn't like, I must not have put alt text on my hyperlinks. A hyperlink is a little bit different to do your alt text on it. If I right click on this and edit the hyperlink, what to do the alt text is the screen tip. So I could put in here online learning. Okay, now it's staying in there because it's having a problem with all these other URLs that are a problem in there. Okay, so if I fixed all these, it would eliminate this from my errors list. Okay, reading orders, sometimes you can't change reading orders. Basically what you do with reading orders, if I go into home and if I go to arrange, and then if I go to selection pane, let me close these other one up. Okay, this doesn't reverse order. So the title would be read first, the picture, the alt text from the picture would be read, and then the text box at the bottom would be read. Okay, it's a little weird that it's from reverse order from first to last here, but this reading order is okay. So I would just ignore that warning when I work with my accessibility checker. Okay, so those are all the main things that you have to worry about when you are making a PowerPoint accessible. And the big thing is run that accessibility checker. Okay, and like I said, here are resources, and I'm going to share this PowerPoint with everybody so that they can go in and view these resources. So at this point, since I only have one person on the call, Catherine, do you have any questions about content that you might have in the PowerPoints that I did not mention?
I'm working on two computers and it's giving me complications. No, actually, the alt text is what I really needed. I think a lot of the things I already do.
Okay.
The alt text, and I have to practice the saving narration. I haven't done it yet, and I'm sure I'll be going back to all of these.
The present.
But I will start using these and then contact you. Donna, I do have one typo for you.
Oh, what you see?
On slide 4.
Okay.
On the last line, it's there. It should be THEIR, their meaning, instead of ERE.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Hey, I'm not perfect.